spirit star was being absorbed into this divine pagoda. For hundreds of thousands of years, from the surface to the core, the 18 Hells of Flame pagoda had been absorbing fire origin energy from all over the world. Lin Ming suspected that the ancient Phoenix clan supreme elder who had placed the 18 Hells of Flame pagoda here wished to use the entire fire spirit star as a sacrifice to refine the pagoda, increasing the grade of the pagoda by yet another level. To use fire spirit star as a furnace to refine the 180,000-mile-long divine pagoda, such boldness surpassed Lin Ming's imagination. Come, all disciples, follow me to enter the 18 Hells of Flame. You will all cultivate in there and see just what level you can stay at. Sun Cycrester said as he led the crowd of disciples to fly into the 18 Hells of Flame. In other directions, the disciples of Charming Phoenix Palace and Praying Phoenix Palace also flew into the 18 Hells of Flame. As soon as Lin Ming entered the space within the 18 Hells of Flame, he could feel that the fire origin energy heavenly winds suddenly rose to another level. This place was simply a sea of fire. Endless red mist filled this vast space, covering everything and making it hard to see through. Lin Ming also knew that this red mist passed all the way through a bottomless pit into the core of Fire Spirit Star. The deeper one went, the more terrifying it would become. Many of Phoenix Cry Palace's disciples already had a hard time maintaining their protective true essence on the surface of Fire Spirit Star, let alone against the heavenly winds in the 18 Hells of Flame. There were 4 or 5 disciples that could not resist the pressure as their protective true essence immediately cracked apart like an egg. Ah! These disciples cried out in terror as they saw the violent heavenly wind rush towards them, ready to rip them apart. But at this moment, a blue-green energy emerged out of thin air and wrapped around their bodies, isolating the heavenly wind outside so that these disciples weren't torn to bits. The several disciples were panic-stricken. At that moment they thought they would lose their lives. This is... They looked at the blue-green energy surrounding their bodies. You useless piles of garbage, humph, I really have no idea how you lot managed to pass the smelting trial qualifications. You just entered the 18 Hells of Flame and faced a bit of heavenly wind and yet you couldn't even withstand that. Senior Ruby Sovereign even had to save you. All of you have shamed my Phoenix Cry Palace. Sun Cycrester bluntly said, his nerves grating. The blue-green energy that had rescued these disciples had come from the artifact spirit of the 18 Hells of Flame, Ruby Sovereign. Ever since Sun Cycrester agreed to chew Red Cloud's bet, his mood had become extremely grim and he was worried about losing. Now that he saw the disciples he brought along being so useless, how could he not become mad? Ho ho ho. At this moment, a clear and light laugh echoed out. Without looking, Sun Cycrester could tell that it was Charming Phoenix Palace's Chew Red Cloud. Behind her was the crowd of Charming Phoenix Palace disciples. The one leading these disciples was the blue-clothed Lu Xiaoyan, and behind Lu Xiaoyan was that strange little trickster girl who had been called Little Moon. Besides them, Charming Phoenix Palace still had 800 to 900 female disciples. Their average strength was indeed higher than that of the disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace. Even the weakest and most mediocre of Charming Phoenix Palace's Firebird Hall disciples were able to maintain their protective true essence so that it didn't shatter, albeit barely managing to do so. In fact, within the ancient Phoenix clan, there tended to be more female talents than male talents. Back in Divine Phoenix Island, this was also the same situation. It was easier for purer Phoenix bloodlines to appear within the bodies of women. And within the entire Atlas world, 80% of the ancient Phoenix clan's female geniuses were gathered at Charming Phoenix Palace. Thus, Charming Phoenix Palace surpassed Phoenix Cry Palace and Praying Phoenix Palace in terms of talent. Correspondingly, the resources that the headquarters passed down to them also surpassed those of Phoenix Cry Palace and Praying Phoenix Palace. Little Moon plucked her tongue and smiled as she saw the disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace clumsily fumble around like swimmers that were drowning. She only looked to be 16 to 17 years old, but she flew through the heavenly winds like a nimble little fish in water, without seeming bothered at all. We're going to go first. We'll wait for you at the second level of the 18 Hells of Flame. Chew Red Cloud laughed as she spoke. She led her crowd of female disciples deeper underground. We're keeping up. Sun Cycrester coldly said. If you discover you cannot withstand going any further, stop where you are and begin cultivating. This portion of the smelting trial will continue for another 20 days, and after that you will all undergo a harsh and rigorous special training period. If you cannot continue then hurry up and get the fuck out of my way. Sun Cycrester's anger had reached the point where he began cursing. Then, he no longer cared about these low-level disciples. He led the elite disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace deeper underground. The further they went, the more violent and brutal the fire origin energy heavenly winds became. Here, the heavenly winds formed high-speed rotating vortexes that spun around in the air. This wind was similar to endless sharp knives. If a martial artist with insufficient cultivation were to step into this wind, they would be directly torn to pieces. Not just that, but the surrounding temperature soared higher and higher. They were already at a temperature that was 8 or 9 times hotter than ordinary magma. This was still a temperature these geniuses could withstand. But, the true essence they consumed to maintain their protective barriers increased, making it increasingly difficult to continue. There were constantly disciples that were left behind. They couldn't continue any further because they reached the limit to maintain their protective true essence. Many of them even had their protective true essence shatter, forcing the 18 Hells of Flame artifact spirit to protect them and bring them back to a higher area. Of course, the female disciples of charming Phoenix Palace weren't all peerless talents. Starting at 100 miles, there were constantly female disciples that were left behind. These female disciples casually chose a place to sit down and began cultivating. Within the 18 Hells of Flame there were many ways to train. One of the simplest kinds was to just stay within the 18 Hells of Flame and use true essence to resist the baptism of heat and pressure. This would continue until one's true essence was completely exhausted, and there would even be some people that fell unconscious. A martial artist's body was similar to a lake, and true essence was the water within. Every time a martial artist exhausted their true essence and pushed it past the limits, that was the same as digging in the lake and making it even deeper. This process made one's foundation more solid. It was an extremely simple but also extremely effective training method. As for the disciples of Praying Phoenix Palace, the performances of their disciples were about the same as those from Phoenix Cry Palace. By the time they reached 3,000 miles deep into the 18 Hells of Flame, half of their disciples had needed to stop because they couldn't withstand going any further. Then 4,000 miles, 5,000 miles, 6,000 miles. They quickly flew deeper down. The temperature here was already over a dozen times that of magma, and the velocity of the heavenly winds was over 10 times the speed of sound. Because the wind was too fast, the wind currents created terrifying sonic booms wherever they went. The sound of passing wind was like glass being etched with sabers. It was grating and excruciating to the ears. Even for those junior disciples who were making their first trip to Fire Spirit Star and were able to easily withstand the surface heat and wind, at this depth, many of them felt their protective true essence waver, ready to pop apart like bubbles in the wind. Hey. A high-ranked Vermilion Bird Hall disciple's protective true essence shattered and his body was sent flying backwards. His body was almost instantly wrapped up in a blue energy. Lin Ming was left speechless as he saw this scene. The three great branch palaces had a total of nearly 3,000 disciples here, and within the 18 Hells of Flame they were all scattered in different locations. Even so, that artifact spirit named Ruby Sovereign was actually able to divide its divine sense into 3,000 sections, each part able to simultaneously look after a different disciple. Moreover, when the protective true essence of these disciples shattered, there might only be a period of 1,000th of the blink of an eye before the fire origin energy heavenly wind struck them. But even in such a short period of time, Ruby Sovereign was able to form blue flame energy from the concept of creation and use this to protect the disciples. This strength was truly startling. I really have no idea just what boundary this Ruby Sovereign has reached. Lin Ming thought out loud. At this moment, Sun Cycresta said, "We're just 2,000 miles away from reaching the second level. Everyone, grit your teeth and continue forwards. Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters."
Sweet revenge. Survive that.
Martial World. Chapter 995 Hells of Flame, second level. Chapter 995 Hells of Flame, second level. They had penetrated 8,000 miles deep into the Hells of Flame. This was a terrifying depth. Here, not only were the temperature and the fire origin energy heavenly winds terrifying, but the immense pressure from the thick fire fog pressed down on them. As it grinded against the martial artist's protective true essence, it emitted crackling sounds like a millstone. Guard your mind and do not blindly use force to resist it. You must use your understandings of laws to withstand it. This will be greatly beneficial to training and tempering your true essence. Sun Cycresta said as he continued flying downwards. An 8,000-mile depth was a distance that even the disciples of Phoenix Hall were finding hard to resist. 9,000 miles. The several disciples who had entered Phoenix Hall only by virtue of their connections finally had their protective true essence burst open. Because one robed youth had exhausted all his energy, he directly fainted on the spot. In the next moment, he was wrapped up by the blue-green flame energy of the Ruby Sovereign and was sent to a safe minor dimension. In the last 1,000 miles, the difficulty rapidly shot up. More and more Phoenix Hall disciples found that they couldn't continue onwards. Besides Phoenix Hall, the disciples of the other three halls couldn't continue onwards. There was only one person left, and that was Jufia. At this time, Jufia was still fairly easily continuing downwards. But, he knew that this relaxedness wouldn't last for much longer. He couldn't help but glance at Lin Ming. Lin Ming was doing well within his expectations, otherwise he wouldn't have been considered the target he had to surpass in the future. Huo Yangguang, Lin Ming, I want to see what step you two will be able to last until. Jufia quickened his pace as he thought this. The second level of the Hells of Flame was close at hand. At this moment, within the vast red dust and fog, everyone saw a group of women. The beautiful woman leading them was Chu Red Cloud. She had been waiting there for the Phoenix Cry Palace disciples. Ho ho. Chu Red Cloud smiled as the Phoenix Cry Palace disciples finally caught up. She wanted to take a look and see just how great the junior disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace were. Sun Cycrista naturally noticed Chu Red Cloud. The two sides had a feeling of being in sharp opposition. Let's go, we're entering the second level. Chu Red Cloud led her disciples and directly rushed towards the second level. Sun Cycrista took a deep breath and said, everyone wake up and give it everything you have. Don't weaken our morale. Bang. From the first level to the second level, space suddenly changed. Everyone saw their surroundings brighten as the world turned light blue. The flames here were blue in color. In the second level of the 18 Hells of Flame Pagoda, the temperature suddenly rose to yet another level. It was now 30 times the temperature of magma. At the same time, the fire origin energy turned into beasts within the air that rushed towards everyone. Even Lin Ming felt a tremendous pressure within this space. At this point, besides the senior disciples, there were only a dozen or so junior disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace remaining. As for charming Phoenix Palace, they were better off, they had 20-some people left remaining. White Do Hong, take the Divine Transformation Realm disciples and continue downwards. I will slowly continue with the junior disciples. Sun Cycrista said. He could faintly feel that the second level was the limit for the junior disciples. If they continued much further, the junior disciples wouldn't be able to last. Okay, Elder Sunday at novel bean at. White Do Hong turned into a beam of light and led the Divine Transformation Realm disciples deeper into the Hells of Flame. To the Divine Transformation Realm disciples, the first two levels weren't considered much at all. Chu Red Cloud faintly smiled and softly said, Xiaoyan, take the Divine Transformation Realm disciples and follow White Do Hong. Do not weaken the momentum of our charming Phoenix Palace. Yes, Elder Master. Lu Xiaoyan replied without expression. She turned into a blue beam of light and led the Divine Transformation Realm disciples of charming Phoenix Palace to chase after White Do Hong. Two brilliant rainbows shot downwards. In the Hells of Flame, they were actually having a competition of speed. As soon as the Divine Transformation Realm disciples left, the ones remaining were mostly Life Destruction and Divine Sea Realm disciples. And the focus of the competition was concentrated on the junior disciples that were 33 years old and below. This was not without reason. These people were the key characters that decided victory or defeat in the bet between Sun Cycrista and Chu Red Cloud. Lin Ming didn't hastily rush downwards. Instead, he peacefully meditated on the wild yet mysterious fire origin energy here, comprehending the fire laws from the various shapes that the fire origin energy took. At this moment, Lin Ming felt a pair of eyes aimed at him. He looked up to see that on the side of charming Phoenix Palace, a 16 to 17-year-old girl was looking at him with a smarmy smirk on her face, a hint of provocation in her eyes. You're the one called Lin Ming. My name is Yang Little Moon. I've heard of you before. It seems that you defeated a 9th stage life destruction martial artist during the 5th stage of life destruction, so your reputation shot up. Lin Ming looked at this Yang Little Moon, not responding. Once a martial artist reached life destruction, it was extremely difficult to tell their age from their appearance. This Yang Little Moon should be in her 20s, and her cultivation was a stage higher than his at the 7th stage of life destruction. Of all the junior disciples who were able to reach the second level of the Hells of Flame, that cultivation could be considered among the lowest. To arrive here with a 7th stage life destruction cultivation, this girl was undoubtedly a proud heavenly daughter of charming Phoenix Palace. In the future it was highly likely she would grow into a character on the level of Lu Xiaoyan. Hee, our cultivations are similar. How about we compete a bit and see who can reach the third level first? Third level. Lin Ming was slightly startled. With his current condition, he absolutely could not reach the third level. The only reasonable method he could use to do so was to use the heretical god sprout to shield himself and absorb the fire origin energy. Only then would it be possible for him to reach the third level. As a final resort, he could open the Grand Mist space and directly melt away the fire laws within the Hells of Flame. If he did that, then there would be no problem to reach the third level. However, Lin Ming didn't want to depend on the heretical god sprout too much. The power of laws was something he had to comprehend himself in order to develop the most solid foundation. While he could use the things that the heretical god force absorbed, they still weren't his own. As for releasing the Grand Mist space, that completely negated the training effect of this smelting trial, there would be no significance in doing so. Thus, Lin Ming was preparing to rely on himself to rush into the 18 Hells of Flame. Not too far away from Yang Little Moon, Chu Red Cloud was watching all of this happen. Her lips curved up in a small smile. No one at Phoenix Cry Palace knew that Yang Little Moon had a perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline. Within her body, half her bloodline was human and the other half was of the ancient phoenix. Such an extreme genius had already achieved a terrifying boundary in the comprehension and compatibility of fire laws. It was to a degree that ordinary martial artists could never compete with her. In the future, Yang Little Moon's accomplishments would surely be far more extraordinary than Lu Xiaoyan's. Even placed within charming Phoenix Palace where talents freely poured forth, she was a rare talent that appeared only every several hundred years or even every 1,000 years. I'm not interested. I'll descend another 2,000 miles at most before I stop. Lin Ming said without expression. He could faintly feel that this Yang Little Moon's understanding of fire laws surpassed even Huo Yangwen's. It had to be known that Huo Yangwen had crossed the 9th stage of life destruction. When he crossed the 9th stage of life destruction he had to withstand the baptism of the heavenly Tao. But Yang Little Moon hadn't gone through that. Yet even so, her comprehension of fire laws had reached the level of Huo Yangwen. From this alone her talent and perception could be imagined. As for Lin Ming, his comprehension of fire laws was far inferior to Huo Yangwen's. If his understanding of fire laws was lacking then he would have to expend several times the true essence for every step he took within the 18 hells of flame. It would simply be impossible for him to go much further. If Lin Ming didn't cheat by using the heretical god sprout then the most he could descend was another 2 to 3,000 miles in the second level. You can only descend another 2 to 3,000 miles. Yang Little Moon was surprised. That's the level you're at. This is far too boring. Auntie Red Cloud, you really determined that this Lin Ming fellow is my greatest rival here. Yang Little Moon looked at Chu Red Cloud with some dissatisfaction. Before arriving at Fire Spirit Star, Chu Red Cloud had urged Yang Little Moon numerous times to be careful of Lin Ming. But now that she saw Lin Ming with her own eyes, all she could see was that he was nothing but mediocre. Do not underestimate your opponent. Lin Ming's superiority stems not from his comprehension of fire laws. There are many aspects of which he has an advantage you cannot compare against. In this smelting trial, although fire laws and compatibility with fire origin energy are the most important parts, it doesn't solely focus on these 2 points. As for other aspects, they will also be tested here. Humph. If we haven't competed then how can it be known that I am inferior to him in any aspect at all? He defeated a 9th stage life destruction martial artist at the 5th stage of life destruction, but that's probably because that Huo Yangwen is far too stupid. Since Auntie favors him, I will take a look and see just how he excels in other fields. But for now, I'm not going to follow them along. These people are so slow that they seem like snails. I'll be heading down first. As Yang Little Moon spoke, she no longer bothered with Lin Ming. She gathered her true essence and turned into a red beam of light that shot towards the 3rd level of the Hells of Flame. Her speed couldn't compare with the Divine Transformation Realm disciples but it was still alarming. As the disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace saw this, all of them were left bamboozled. Who is that young girl? If I didn't read wrong then isn't she at the 7th stage of life destruction? Heavens. I'm at the Divine Sea Realm but I'm already finding it hard to continue. If I flew down at high speed I would likely just die, but she's doing it so easily. Is she even human? Yang Little Moon was a genius that had just recently appeared at charming Phoenix Palace. The people of Phoenix Cry Palace simply didn't know of her. Now that they saw her prowess, all of them were inevitably shocked. And as Sun Cycrester saw this, he felt his heart skip a beat. He reached out a part of his sense and tracked down Yang Little Moon. Then, he made a startling discovery. In just 2 breaths of time, Yang Little Moon had dove over 1,000 miles downwards to reach a 12,000 mile depth. Then, 13,000 miles, 14,000 miles, 15,000 miles. Moreover, at that depth her speed still didn't diminish. It was only at the 18,000 mile depth that Yang Little Moon's speed began to faintly reduce. At 19,000 miles, she began to slow down as if she were reaching her limit. But the 19,000 mile distance was already nearing the 3rd level of the Hells of Flame. How could this be possible? A 7th stage life destruction martial artist neared the 3rd level of the Hells of Flame. Sun Cycrester looked up at Chu Red Cloud and his voice changed. She has. Chu Red Cloud faintly smiled in response. She slowly and clearly said, Perfect Ancient Phoenix Bloodline. Perfect Ancient Phoenix Bloodline. How is that possible? Those with perfect Ancient Phoenix Bloodlines are only born in the 3 great family clans and they are concentrated at headquarters, so how could any one of them be at your charming Phoenix Palace? Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Not ready yet. You won't survive that.
Martial World. Chapter 996 If you want to bet then bet Yang Little Moon. Chapter 996 If you want to bet then bet Yang Little Moon. In the ancient Phoenix clan, geniuses could appear even within the common folk. But, it was impossible for someone with a perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline to appear within the commoners, because a perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline required two parents with extremely rich bloodlines in order for a slight chance of such a child appearing.
Just a taste.
Such people were concentrated in the three great family clans and the ancient Phoenix clan headquarters. They could be considered the royal family of the ancient Phoenix clan. And for a genius that appeared amongst the common people, their talent usually lay in comprehension of laws, training speed, or other such aspects. But in terms of solely bloodline, even the most unrivaled genius of the common people would pale in comparison to the most ordinary disciples of the three great family clans. The power of bloodline was the very foundation on which the three great family clans existed. That was the reason they had been able to dominate the ancient Phoenix clan for so many years. They maintained a strict and harsh marriage system and absolutely prohibited their bloodlines from being diluted. But this young little moon, looking at her last name, didn't seem to originate from the three great family clans. In the ancient Phoenix clan there was indeed a distinguished Yang family, but they were still far from being able to birth someone with a perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline. Sun Cycriston never would have imagined that charming Phoenix Palace actually had a disciple with a perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline. This simply defied all logic, because such a person would only appear in the three great family clans. After they appeared, they would surely be kept in the bases of the three great family clans or the ancient Phoenix clan headquarters and be a focus of training. They would not be sent to branch palaces. Sun Cycriston knew this, that was why he was willing to make this bet. If he knew that charming Phoenix Palace had such a disciple, he would never have agreed to it. In life, everything is possible. Normally speaking, if you aren't a junior of the three great family clans then you're unlikely to have a perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline. But, Little Moon stumbled upon a lucky chance. As she was exploring a mystic realm, she was sent tumbling into a god-burying valley by a wild space flow. But not only did she not die, she even found a pond of Phoenix blood there and she used that pond to evolve her ancient Phoenix bloodline into perfection. Chu Red Cloud smiled as she spoke. She ignored Sun Cycrista's increasingly ugly complexion. Sun Cycrista felt as if someone had stabbed a dagger into his heart. He already knew that this Chu Red Cloud woman was difficult to deal with, and there would be a high chance of losing any bet made with her. However, Chu Red Cloud had suddenly put forth an Arctic Ice Immortal Stamen, a temptation that he wasn't able to refuse. As they said, humans died for wealth and birds died for food. In the face of such an irresistible lure, even a 20,000-year-old man like him had to take the risk. Plus, he had fallen into Chu Red Cloud's devious machinations. Originally, Sun Cycrista's greatest hope was Lin Ming. Besides Lin Ming, it was fine if just one of the other junior disciples could place in the top 5. But now, when Lin Ming was compared to the perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline of this young little moon, it seemed that he was bound to lose. As for the other disciples, they were even less worthy of mentioning. Even if charming Phoenix Palace had decided to lower their results by 30%, all hope of victory was quickly fading away. His chances of winning this bet were looking more and more unlikely. If you agreed to the bet then you must also accept the loss. Vice Hall Master Sun, you wouldn't go back on a promise, right? Chu Red Cloud laughed out loud. But in Sun Cycrista's eyes, that laughing face was actually filled with extreme evil and sinister intent. If possible, he really wanted to rush over and strike her to death with a palm. Humph. What nonsense are you spouting? I agreed to the best so I must agree to the loss. Chu Red Cloud, there are still 2 years left in the ancient Phoenix smelting trial, don't think that you've already won. Sun Cycrista calmly said. Ha ha. 2 years is fine, but I'm afraid that the longer this lasts, the further your Phoenix Cry Palace disciples will be thrown away. 2 years from now, Little Moon should be able to reach the 5th level of the Hells of Flame. She might even have a chance of entering the 6th level, who knows? Amongst your disciples, how many can reach the 4th level? As for the 5th level, I think you're all done for. Chu Red Cloud chuckled. Her eyes fell onto Lin Ming, apprentice nephew Lin, what do you think? Lin Ming didn't expect that Chu Red Cloud would suddenly point her spear at him. For a time, he was the focus of all attention. Whether it was Phoenix Cry Palace or charming Phoenix Palace, all disciples looked towards Lin Ming to see what his response would be. Lin Ming slightly frowned. Chu Red Cloud's words were difficult to answer. Agreeing with her was impossible, but if he disagreed then that would place a tremendous pressure on the disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace. If he couldn't keep up with his own words later then that would really be disgraceful. Lin Ming thought for a moment and then said, Marshal Senior Chu, are you saying that you wish for me to agree with you? Chu Red Cloud's eyebrows arched upwards. She softly laughed and said, Apprentice nephew Lin can certainly disagree with me. This is my first time entering Fire Spirit Star to participate in the ancient Phoenix smelting trials. I don't have much of an understanding towards this 18 Hells of Flame so I naturally wouldn't dare to make outrageous boasts or claims. But, Marshal Senior Chu has so generously promised 1 drop of Phoenix Heart blood if Elder Sun can win. I, Lin Ming, am of low talent and my bloodline is also very faint. I truly do need a drop of Phoenix Heart blood to help consolidate my foundation when I cross the 7th stage of life destruction. Plus, I thank Marshal Senior Chu for the good intentions and shall naturally try my hardest not to disappoint you. Only by desperately risking my life will I have a slight hope of winning. Then, how about this? Since Marshal Senior Chu is so confident in junior apprentice sister Yang Little Moon, how about we change the conditions of this bet so that the other disciples are no longer involved and it will only be between me and junior apprentice sister Yang Little Moon. I also no longer need Charming Phoenix Palace to lower their results by 30%. Whoever places higher shall be the victor, how about that? Lin Ming's words were extremely gentle and polite, but also extremely forceful. His response caused all the surrounding martial artists to suck in a breath of cold air. Facing Chu Red Cloud's trick question, Lin Ming not only answered, but he also put forth a strong counterattack. At novel being at. Of course, this counterattack was built on the basis that Lin Ming could win. At the minimum, his results needed to not be too different from Yang Little Moon's. Otherwise, if he were beaten into the ground by Yang Little Moon, then he would draw the ridicule of everyone onto him. What Lin Ming did was the same as placing all the burden on his shoulders. This caused the disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace to feel relieved, but also to feel worried for Lin Ming. This was a perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline. Just from looking at the results within the 18 Hells of Flame so far, Lin Ming was clearly inferior to Yang Little Moon. Since he put forth such a change in the betting rules, could he really do anything? It was not wrong that Lin Ming's progression was frighteningly fast, but how could Yang Little Moon, with her perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline, be slow? 2 years from now, Lin Ming might not have overtaken her, but instead have fallen further behind. All of the Phoenix Cry Palace disciples were nervous for Lin Ming, and each of them had different thoughts on the situation. Chu Fia opened his mouth several times as if he wanted to say something, but he eventually didn't. Lin Ming's words were the same as removing him from the bet. If this was before, then Chu Fia might have been the first one to jump out and object. However, when he saw Yang Little Moon's terrifying talent on full display just now, even his proud and arrogant heart had come under heavy attack. After arriving at the second level of the Hells of Flame, he couldn't go much further. If someone told him to be boastful and challenge Yang Little Moon, he absolutely would not have the courage to do so. Without any valiant intrepidness left in his heart, all he could do was shut up and not argue. Chu Fia grit his teeth and glanced over at Huo Langwen. He saw that Huo Langwen was actually calm, without any intentions of opposing. Lin Ming didn't wait for Chu Red Cloud to respond. He first looked at Sun Cyclister. This bet was made by Sun Cyclister. If he wanted to change the rules of the bet, he first had to obtain the approval of Sun Cyclister. Sun Cyclister deeply looked at Lin Ming and then slowly nodded. In fact, if Lin Ming lost to Yang Little Moon, then if Huo Langwen managed to advance into the top 5, they would still only occupy 2 spots. Even if Charming Phoenix Palace lowered their results by 30%, there still wasn't any hope of victory. Plus, whether Lin Ming could win or not was already the key of this bet. Lin Ming changing the rules of the bet didn't increase the chances of Sun Cyclister winning. In fact, there would be even less random variables added in. Lin Ming would only need to worry about his own strength and not about others. This was a choice originating from absolute self-confidence. Ha 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 ha. Chu Red Cloud's clear laughter echoed through the world. Heroes have always come from the young. When I was still at Charming Phoenix Palace I had already heard great tales of apprentice nephew Lin's bravado and daring. But now that I see you today, your boldness is truly extraordinary. Good, since you have proposed this change, I will agree. Moreover, I will also increase the stakes. If apprentice nephew Lin can win, then not only will I give up the drop of Phoenix Heart Blood and the Arctic Ice Immortal Stamen, but how about I also gift you a pair of utterly exquisite women? Chu Red Cloud's words caused a strange expression to appear on Lin Ming's face. And on the side of Phoenix Cry Palace, many junior disciples were surprised at Chu Red Cloud's words before revealing looks thick with envy and desire. The so-called utterly exquisite women were clearly disciples of Charming Phoenix Palace, and they would also be a pair. Within the 3 branch palaces of Atlas World, whether it was Phoenix Cry Palace or Praying Phoenix Palace, the male disciples of both palaces coveted and would be proud to marry a disciple from Charming Phoenix Palace. Moreover, there would be 2 of them. Of course, being envious was useless. If they wished to enjoy the happiness of 2 such wives, they would need the strength to back up their thoughts. As for the female disciples of Charming Phoenix Palace, they were stunned at first before all of them reacted differently. Most of the senior disciples tenderly smiled, a meaningful and amiable look on their faces. But as for the junior disciples, most of them blushed a deep crimson. These young women hadn't yet experienced any romantic feelings towards other men yet. Now that this matter was suddenly brought up, they were naturally shy and embarrassed. In fact, with Lin Ming's talent and his handsome looks, he was truly an ideal candidate for a husband. At this time, Sun Cyclister sneered. He said, Chu Red Cloud, your wishful thoughts are planned out quite well. If Lin Ming can win, then that proves his talent surpasses that of Yang Little Moon. For him to not possess a perfect ancient phoenix bloodline but to have a talent that surpasses it, that would truly be incredible. That is because one can obtain a perfect ancient phoenix bloodline as long as they pay a great enough price. But for all other aspects of talent, they are mostly set. It is highly difficult to enhance any of them. In that way, Lin Ming will likely become a character on the level of a palace master. You plan to randomly throw out 2 girls from the Chu family and not only climb up using this relationship, but all talented disciples that stem from those girls in the future will also be children of the Chu family. Lin Ming would also become the son-in-law of your Chu family. No matter how one looks at it, you will profit no matter what happens. Chew Red Cloud, you really are a wolf that can never stop eating meat. No matter what the situation is, the one to eat a loss will never be you. After her plans were revealed by Sun Cycrister, Chew Red Cloud wasn't embarrassed at all. Instead, she brightly smiled and said, "What do you mean I'll randomly throw out 2 girls? I already have 2 girls in mind, and they are beautiful twin sisters that have both first-class looks and talent. If they take care of Lin Ming together, that will absolutely not be disgraceful to him. Others could never search for such a good deed even if they tried. Moreover, I never said that Lin Ming wouldn't be able to take concubines in the future. What sort of hot-blooded man would refuse such conditions? What do you say, apprentice nephew Lin?"
Need more time.
Chew Red Cloud revealed a meaningful smile, a happy teasing light in her eyes as she looked at Lin Ming. Even Lin Ming was a bit embarrassed by this situation and he didn't speak at all. But then, Sun Cycrister scoffed. "What beautiful twin sisters. If you really have the goal then just marry Yang Little Moon to Lin Ming. If you want to bet then bet Yang Little Moon." Tip, you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Still waiting. Not ready yet. Your fear betrays you.
Martial World. Chapter 997 De. Chapter 997 De. Bet Yang Little Moon. All the Phoenix Cry Palace disciples felt their jaws drop as they heard Sun Cycrista say this. They were all left staring dumbfounded. Just who was Yang Little Moon? She was someone with a perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline. She was a proud daughter of heaven that stood out amongst all proud daughters of heaven. If one could make love to Yang Little Moon, then that truly would be a wonderful event. Without discussing Yang Little Moon's top-class appearance and figure, just her perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline would be a massive lucky chance to the man who took her primordial yin. In the ancient Phoenix clan, if a man and woman had sex then their bloodlines would supplement each other. When Lin Ming was at Divine Phoenix Island, this was also the case. Mu Qianyu and Mu Binjian were both saintesses of Divine Phoenix Island, and they possessed pure Vermilion Bird and Blue Yuan bloodlines. The person who took their primordial yin could strengthen their own bloodlines. However, Lin Ming was an exception at the time. With his 100 drops of ancient Phoenix blood, his bloodline was far purer and richer than Mu Qianyu's Vermilion Bird bloodline by countless times. When Lin Ming and Mu Qianyu made love, she had actually been the one to pick up all the advantages from his body. When a male and female had sex, the one with the thinner bloodline would obtain advantages from the one with the richer bloodline. If Lin Ming had the chance to have sex with someone with a perfect ancient Phoenix bloodline, the immense advantages could be imagined. In particular the virginity of a woman. If one could obtain a woman's primordial yin energy, the advantages would be even greater. Lin Ming was indeed talented, but the bloodline within his body was far too pale. This was because he had never been a true legitimate ancient Phoenix clan clansman from the start. He was far from being able to compare with Huo Yangguang, let alone someone like Yang Little Moon. If he could make love with Yang Little Moon then the benefits couldn't be outweighed by even several drops of Phoenix heart blood. It was exactly because of this reason that the Phoenix Cry Palace disciples were stirred up. They began to shout out loud. Bet Yang Little Moon. Elder Sun is far too ruthless. Yang Little Moon is a fairy-like figure, like an immortal celestial of heaven. When she grows in the future there will be countless handsome heroic young elites who will chase her hand for marriage. These people will likely include the future family head successors for the 3 great family clans, or even someone like the son of the ancient Phoenix clan's patriarch. Their status surpasses senior apprentice brother White Dohong by countless times, to a point that we cannot imagine. Lin Ming is talented, but that is only in relation to our Phoenix Cry Palace. If he is compared to geniuses like them, he is far from being qualified. If Yang Little Moon marries Lin Ming, that is something beyond his status. That's right. Lin Ming is a martial artist who ascended from the lower realms. In terms of background he is no better than a common mortal disciple of Phoenix Cry Palace or Charming Phoenix Palace. His bloodline density is extremely limited. If he dual cultivates with Yang Little Moon, then she will be the one to suffer a loss. If they have children in the future, their bloodline will be lacking too. How could her family possibly agree to this? Yang Little Moon will suffer a loss but that Punk Lin Ming's gains will be far too great and for far too little. Those benefits, it makes one crazy just thinking about them. The disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace were drooling just talking about it. Which one of the male disciples didn't wish to marry such a magnificent woman like Yang Little Moon? If they had to exchange 20,000 years of their life in exchange for a single night with her, at least 90% of the male disciples might be willing to do that. However, someone poured water over everyone's parade. You make it sound as if Yang Little Moon is already married to Lin Ming. For Lin Ming to win against Yang Little Moon in the ancient Phoenix smelting trial, that is just far too difficult. Yeah, it does seem impossible. In the entire junior generation of the ancient Phoenix clan, there are only a few people with perfect ancient Phoenix bloodlines. It won't be easy to win. Sun Cycrista's words had caused a heated discussion throughout the disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace. Men were always enthusiastic to discuss beautiful women to begin with. Moreover, this was a topic that Elder Sun had raised himself. Even if they couldn't obtain Yang Little Moon, they could still drool over their imaginations. Sun Cycrista normally managed his disciples in a strict and severe manner. But today, as he saw the disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace heatedly discussing Yang Little Moon, not only did he not admonish them, but he even smiled. After seeing Chu Red Cloud and suffering repeated losses to her, he had finally been able to retaliate. Seeing Chu Red Cloud's flustered expression really caused his thoughts to flow much more smoothly. What about it, Fairy Chu? Wasn't victory already in your hands? Weren't you sure that Yang Little Moon could win? Didn't you say that someone who agrees to a bet must accept their losses? Since you're so confident, you might as well agree as you're winning anyway. Ho ho ho. Chu Red Cloud gingerly laughed. She shook her head, saying, Vice Hall Master Sun doesn't need to try and shock me. This child Little Moon is not my daughter and I cannot take responsibility for her. Lin Ming is still a handsome and talented young man. Although he is slightly inferior in the aspect of bloodlines and laws, those can be increased by paying a steep enough price. Unfortunately, only my big brother can take responsibility for Little Moon's marriage matters. However, what I can guarantee is that if Lin Ming truly does defeat Little Moon, then I shall serve as a matchmaker and raise the issue with my big brother. As for whether or not he agrees, I can make no guarantees. Chu Red Cloud impishly smiled. Sun Cycrista was not satisfied with this reply. He said, Chu Red Cloud, is everything you say always a bunch of nonsense? When Lin Ming defeats Yang Little Moon and then your big brother does not agree, then what? Is that interesting at all? Elder son, I already said I cannot take responsibility for this matter. If apprentice nephew Lin has a liking for a little girl from my Chu family, then I can take responsibility for that. However, she is only 14 years old, so you'll have to wait several more years for her. Chu Red Cloud laughed. But at this time, a red beam of light shot out from deep within the Hells of Flame at an extremely quick speed. It was Yang Little Moon, who had returned from the 3rd level of the Hells of Flame. Yang Little Moon was very popular in charming Phoenix Palace. When Sun Cycrista had stirred up Chu Red Cloud with his suggestions just now, Yang Little Moon's close confidant had quietly used a special sound-transmitting talisman to send a message to Yang Little Moon. As soon as Yang Little Moon heard the message, she became incensed with anger. She didn't bother impacting into the 3rd level and returned at full speed instead. Auntie, you are betting my marriage. You make a bet and you want me as part of the stakes now. Did this old man say that? Yang Little Moon glared at Sun Cycrista, her small chest heaving up and down in rage. Any girl would be angry after hearing that they were made into some betting stake. Moreover, Yang Little Moon was extremely arrogant to begin with. In these past years, there had been so many handsome heroic young elites chasing after her that she couldn't lose them even if she tried, and yet today someone was turning her into a betting stake. How ridiculous. How preposterous. How dare they? But unfortunately, Yang Little Moon's angry expression was not fierce or vicious at all. Instead, she appeared quite lovable and cute. As the male disciples of Phoenix Cry Palace looked at the angry Yang Little Moon, they revealed happy expressions in their eyes. At novel being at. Yang Little Moon was in her 20s, but her outer appearance was that of a 16-year-old girl. Really, her angry expression was simply too adorable. What a cute and lovable girl. If junior apprentice brother Lin can marry Yang Little Moon, that will be a good fortune he can enjoy for several lifetimes. Indeed. She's a wild and playful girl, but she's so beautiful even when she's angry. If I could marry her, I'd even be willing to give up 10,000 years of my life. The comments from the Phoenix Cry Palace disciples only added fuel to the fire. You people. Yang Little Moon was furious. These people simply didn't take her anger seriously. She felt as if she was being disregarded by them. Sun Cycrista smiled. He stroked his beard and said, yes, I am the old man who suggested this. How about it, do you dare to agree to this bet? Humph, if you want to defeat me then keep on dreaming. Yang Little Moon's lips curved up in a charming smile. At this time, she was fully displaying all of the arrogance and disdain in her heart. As Chu Red Cloud saw this, she felt her heart gripped. She said with a sound transmission, Little Moon, don't be tricked. This old man is only trying to provoke you. You absolutely must not be impulsive and agree. Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Do you want more? I'm ready yet. within you. go back.
I grant you the power of your ancestors.
You look like you could use a new item of, indeterminate usefulness. What a steal. Well, isn't that nice? Don't forget,
I can't carry
luck
anymore.
always changes. Anything could happen. Hello there. Do come back again. What?
That is too
I didn't
expensive.
even know I had that thing.